I mean, since trading for Jimmy Butler, you look at the numbers, and they're absolutely ridiculous. I mean, free throws made, that was one thing the Warriors weren't good at prior to Jimmy, and attempted. But those numbers going through the roof. You guys, again, I was telling you, I did that Warriors game just last week, and Steve Kerr was telling us before the game, because one thing you don't really appreciate sometimes about Jimmy Butler, but he does now that he has him, he does all these things that are so sound. They may not be spectacular, for the fantasy sometimes, but they are so sound. He's always in position. He's got that alpha dog mentality. He goes, man, he just lands on 2 feet. He's always doing the things that are just right and does them in a timely fashion for him.
He does. I mean, there's so much to talk about this trade, how it's impacted the Golden State Warriors. I mean, I'll start off with points in the paint. The Warriors didn't get points in the paint. I mean, if you look at it, they ran their offense and they get some back doors. They legitimately has a guy that if he has a guy on his back, now don't have to be a mismatch. He takes advantage of it. They didn't get to the free throw line where they could slow and get and have a team in a half-court situation. When you look at stats, GA and the Bill, he gets 26 and he's 5 of 8 from the field, and maybe only taking 1 or 2 threes. Anybody's gotten 10, 11 double-digit free throw attempts. I love that is he understands his game. I know where Jimmy's gonna get his buckets from. He's not one of these players who's like some of these young guys, they going to take step backs. They're going to do that. Jimmy Butler is elbow in, occasional 3, but more importantly, he's going to take advantage if you make a mistake. And then he has the best players to play with as far as basketball IQ. There's some times where you watch guys with high basketball IQ. If I'm playing with GA and GA backs door and I miss him, it's over. But if I'm playing with GA and I throw it at the same time he's cutting, we're on the same page. But if GA cuts and then I'm throwing it, you miss that second. Jimmy Butler, more importantly, of all those things I've talked about, he gave a belief back to this Warriors team with Draymond and Steph. It was almost like a B12 shot. They are ready to go right now, the Golden State Warriors.
They have 2 guys on their team that are superstars in terms of their impact on the game, but not necessarily statistically. When you look at a Jimmy Butler's stat line, it doesn't say, oh, that's a superstar. Same thing with Draymond Green. But when you look at how they impact the game of basketball, it completely differentiates them, because those are 2 guys, they can blow up defenses or offenses better probably than anybody in the league because of their anticipatory skills, understanding of what you're trying to do offensively. And then on the offensive end, that duo probably have the highest collective IQ. I'd say trio, put Steph in there, of any trio in the entire league. And you have to have an IQ that's really high to maximize Steph Curry. There's a reason why Steph's level has risen, is because his greatest strength is not having the ball. He is the most dangerous player this game has ever seen without the basketball. And because he can play the entire court, if you don't have guys out there that are on the same wavelength that he is on, and that's what Smitty's talking about, you take away a big part of his talent. And so when you look at this Warriors team the last couple years, they've been middling. They've been a middle-tier team, no real threat to have a chance to win it because they were average defensively and offensively. Now, Steph can play the way Steph played when they won championships. He doesn't have to be ball dominant. He's got another guy, Jimmy, who can go get 30 in a game, who you've got to guard. And then with Draymond, he kind of just stirs the pot. So that's why this team is legitimately dangerous. They got it defensively. They got their young guys playing at a really high level because they now understand their system. And then with Steph, anything's possible.
And Steve was saying this the other day, too, and he said one thing that people don't realize also is that when Jimmy came over, it stabilized their bench and their role players, because especially for the young guys, he said, if you remember at the beginning of the year, I'm playing 12, 13 guys. We're playing all these sorts of players and again, all sorts of different minutes. They didn't have an established role. But when Jimmy got there, now they've gone down to 8, 9, 10 guys, depending on the night. And guys know I'm going to get my minutes no matter what, and they have a defined role.
Well, as a coach, you look down and say, I need this, I need that. So GA, as he coaching, I'm the assistant coach. I'm saying, GA, we need this. And Steve Kerr's looking down, which one? With Jimmy, he checks about 9 of those boxes. Yeah. So that means now I don't have to have that many people in rotation. That is a luxury for a coach. I also say is people always thinking about coaching. Coaching is done before we get to the court if you have an experienced team. We're talking about all this. Once we get in the game, the guys with high basketball IQ and talent, they figure it out. Jimmy's one of those guys, you could just coach him before the game. Throughout the game, if he makes a mistake, I don't have to talk to him about how he's going to correct it. He self-correct because of his experience and his talent and his basketball IQ.
What about their size? Because they're not the biggest team out there. In the West, is that
Kevon Looney is the one key for me, how many Kevon Looney minutes they can play against bigger guys.
That's true. I would say this. There's two teams. There's really one team, and that would be Denver. Because size is relative to how it's used. In today's game, you don't have a lot of bigs. Şengün is like that, where you have to worry about their back to the basket, scoring. And this is where a guy like Draymond helps you. Because even with an advantage, you don't, for 40 minutes, have to double. You don't have to compromise your defense. Now, Draymond's not going to shut Jokic down. He's not going to shut Şengün down. But because of Looney, okay, he can buy me maybe 15 minutes of the game. And then with the way you play from a defensive standpoint, they just can't allow Jokic to make everybody else better, you know. And so they would figure out the size is not as big. You're seeing the same dynamic with the Lakers. The advantage you have now is, can your wings control the defensive backboard? You know, and that's what Jimmy and Draymond and those guys allow them to do. So, yeah, the size is a concern, but it's not the issue.
All right, taking a look at the East. This is the way the standings finished out. And you got Cleveland leading the way, picking up that first seed, Boston at number 2, New York 3. So we got Cleveland and Boston awaiting the play-in winners. New York's taking on Detroit in the first round. Indiana taking on Milwaukee. As far as the play-in is concerned, you got Orlando and Atlanta, Chicago and Miami. But let's start with the defending champions, the Boston Celtics, who over the last, 2 months or so, Smitty, have been playing some great basketball.
They have. I just love how they've managed this entire season. You know, when you have a Drew Holiday, a Derek White, and also a Jason Tatum, who played a lot of basketball. Then in the summertime, they went and obviously won the gold medal for us. You know, the way they've managed their minutes has been phenomenal. Al Horford, GA, to be able to hold down the fort at his age when they had to give some rest to Porzingis. So I love everything about the Boston Celtics. And great teams, what I love is what we were talking about in the last segment. I always say, can they win a game defensively? They can win a series defensively. Can they win a game when things just not going well? They've been through it. They're not going to shrink like we talked about it. And then I think right now, before that, we all used to say, nothing against his coaching. Has he been through it? Now, the coaching staff has been through everything right now, and now I'm on board with them. I look at them as, do they have a bench? The bench has been through it. Do they have size? They have everything. Now, could they not win it because some teams can catch a fire against them? But I other than injuries and maybe, you know, everybody's talking about how Jaylen Brown will come back. That's the only thing I'm looking, but nothing. I don't see a weakness in them right now.
No, I mean, what's remarkable is after winning a championship, they come back the next year with all the adversity because they've had guys in and out of line. They won 60 games this year. Like, they still won 60. You know, kudos to Cleveland for winning 64 to this point, but they didn't really take a step back. You know, but I think mentally they're going to come into this postseason, if healthy, refreshed. Their bench is a